Thank you, Chairperson, judges, audience, and of course our opponents. I'm Asuka Kido, and I'll be the constructive speaker today. I'm very excited for the quarterfinal, and also I'm delighted to have a game with Agata High School. And however, I'm a little nervous because it's the finals already. However, I have a palliative care. His name is Uribo, and he eases my nervousness. Actually, he is Kobe University's character, so he has nothing to do with Fujishima or Fukui, but I like him very much. Thank you. I'll do my best.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Taichi, urban talk speaker from the formative side. I'm very good to have a game with Agata High School, which we compete with each other for a long time. And I want to learn, of course, I have learned so many things from the debate. However, of course, I want to learn from so many things from debates as well as other games. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges and our audience, and of course the opponents at the high school. My name is Kazumi Takasaki, and I'll be your defense speaker on the affirmative side. Actually, I participated in the national in last year. However, at the time, I cannot go to the final tournament, so I was very sad at the time. So I'm very glad to be here, and also my mother is coming here to see me. So I want to do my best here, and I want to enjoy this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Haruka Sawazaki, the Tamari speaker from the affirmative side. I'm really proud to be on the stage of the quarterfinal of this national tournament, and I think today will be the last day for us to have this euthanasia debate. And we're really proud to have a game against Agatagaoka. I really want to thank all of the people who have supported us until today, all of our teammates and family and teachers, and all of our friends. So I hope it could be a really important game, so I can learn a lot of things from this game. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. We will now have brief introductions from the negative side members.
Thank you, Chairperson, judges, and our opponents. My name is Reina Matsumoto, and I'll be a constructive speaker on the negative side. I'm really nervous, and it's almost unbearable, but I will do my best to tell what we are saying, and I want to make it a great debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges, and our opponents, Fujishima High School. My name is Yuka. I'm a tech speaker on the negative side. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm really excited to debate with Fujishima because I love Fujishima High School because they are very kind and the greatest debaters. I know that this debate will be hard for us, but I want to enjoy it, and I will do my best. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges, and of course, opponents. My name is Rina Kamura, and I'll be the defense speaker from the negative side. I'm surprised that I'm here and standing here and debate with Fujishima. Yes, as Maki says, we love Fujishima, and we always talk about Fujishima like we should be like them. So yes, we should be like them, and we should do our best. So I will try my best. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, judges, audience, and my opponents. My name is Suzuna Kobayashi. I'm a summer speaker on the negative side. I'm glad to be here, and I'm very happy to debate with Fujishima High School. So I want to enjoy this match, and I will do my best. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, judges, audience, and our opponents. I'll start the affirmative constructive speech. My name is Asuka. Plan 1. Patients will euthanize after a week. Their request is accepted. B1, relieving physical pain. A, present situation. Both terminal and non-terminal patients have severe pain. According to Augusta Japan University Hospital 2007 code, 75% of terminal and 60 to 70% of non-terminal patients with cancer are suffering from serious pain, unquote. However, this pain cannot be cured. According to the Japanese Society of Practical Healthcare and Sciences 2006 code, 10 to 20% of cancer patients feel extreme pain even after receiving medicine, unquote. Moreover, passive euthanasia is not effective because doctors cannot conduct passive euthanasia. According to the Japanese Society of 2011 code, only a few percent of patients can choose passive euthanasia now, unquote. In addition, even if patients choose passive euthanasia, they're just starving to death, which means that the patients are forced to painful death. Therefore, patients are forced to suffer from consistent and endless pain. The effect: 1. With euthanasia, patients can be released from agony. 2. Active euthanasia can effectively reduce the pain of patients. According to the American Medical Association 2006 code, in the Netherlands, 94% of patients who carried out euthanasia died within an hour, unquote. See importance. Easing pain is the purpose of medical treatment. However, with the advancement of medical treatment, it is possible to keep suffering patients alive. Therefore, just keeping the patient alive is not actually helping the patient. Active euthanasia is the only way to save patients, so we must guarantee euthanasia as a last resort. 82. Regulation of terminal treatments to consider the patient's will. 82. Regulation of terminal treatments to consider the patient's will. A, present situation. More and more people consider how they want to end their lives. However, there's no law regulating euthanasia or other terminal treatments, and there's no consistent standard for doctors. Consequently, there's confusion in hospitals. The proper way to deal with terminal treatments is ambiguous. For example, in the 1995 Tokai University Hospital case, the doctor was initially against euthanizing an unconscious patient, but was not able to reject the family's strong request to do so. In addition, sometimes treatments that gradually lower the consciousness and shortens the patient's lives are being used. According to Gifu Red Cross Hospital 2014 code, in 57% of cases of sedation, only the family's will was checked, unquote. This means that medical treatments that lead to death are carried out without the patient's will. However, there is no law, so these cases are not dealt with properly, and they are not brought up to the court, and even if they are, the court cannot judge these cases properly. The effect: 1. A law established to legalize euthanasia. It will be clear that the patient's will is necessary, and euthanasia will be under the supervision of the Euthanasia Review Committee. 2. Euthanizing patients without their will is clearly illegal, so doctors will certainly check the patient's will. In fact, according to Professor Reggie Philipson of the Department of Public and Occupational Health Code, non-voluntary euthanasia has decreased from 0.8% of all deaths in 1990 to 0.2% in 2010, unquote. 3. Even if the patient was euthanized without their clear consent, the court, with a clear standard, can judge it. Therefore, as the law regulates these cases, they will decrease over time. C. Importance. Only the government, by establishing a law regulating terminal care, could solve the problem that there is no law to protect the patient's will. According to court decision of the Kyoto Hospital case 2009 code, this problem can no longer be solved through the interpretation of the current law, and a new law or guideline is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges. I start my question time. My name is Suzuno. First, on your 81, you said that euthanasia can relieve patients' pain, right?
Yes.
So who is your target?
Patients have pain, unbearable pain.
So are you saying that anyone who have unbearable pain can be euthanized?
Not anyone. Those who meet the criteria.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on your 82. So on your 82, what will happen after the plan?
After the plan, there will be a regulation and a law saying that euthanasia is only allowed when the patient shows their clear consent, and so the patient's will is necessary. So compared to the present situation where there is no law, the patient's will can be considered.
So are you saying that after the plan, families will not choose sedation for their patients?
for the evidence that we showed that when 57% of cases of sedation was by the family's will, in this case, the patient's will was not checked. So after the plan, the patient's will was certainly checked. So
actually, plan patient's will be respected.
yes, because there is a law saying that you have to.
So what is bad things families to choose sedation to patients?
We believe that the patient's will must be checked.
So what is importance?
So in the current situation, patients are non-voluntarily being sedated, and this is shortening their lives and leading to death. So that is irreversible. So we believe that these choices must be, we must consider the patient's
So what is the importance of patients' will? Patients.
So that is irreversible, and sedation, for example, leads to death. So we must consider their will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges. I'll start my constructive speech. My name is Reina. DA1, elderly people will be victims. Elderly people will be victims. Present situation. Japan is aging rapidly and the number of deaths will continue increasing. According to the Cabinet Office, more than 1.4 million people will die every year after 2020. Patients are trying to live and doctors are supporting them by medical treatment because Japanese society is based on the principle that we should make every effort to support the dying people. In fact, after the plan, patients' lives will be intentionally shortened since the definition of unbearable is not clear. French lawmakers who studied Dutch case in 2008 reported that, quote, the criteria of assessing the degree of a patient are unclear, and doctors' assessment is subjective, unquote. Because of this, elderly people were euthanized. AP reported that in the Netherlands, about 8% of people were euthanized because of health problems from old age and early stage dementia. Almost 75% of those who were euthanized were over 60, according to the annual report 2017. These figures indicate that a lot of elderly people choose euthanasia. According to Dr. Lenner of New York University, 7% of people who obtained euthanasia were categorized as tired of living. Almost 4% reported only psychological suffering. Half of granted requests included loneliness as part of suffering. Elderly people could be euthanized for these reasons. Importance. It is wrong to persuade people who are poor or lonely to die. A Dutch politician, Geert Wilders, clearly states, quote, combating loneliness, investigating indignity, and focusing on our elderly is always the best option, unquote. Euthanasia is completely against the idea to respect the elderly. DA2, increase of suicide. Present situation. Preventing people from committing suicide is an important policy in Japan. In 2016, the Basic Act on Suicide Prevention was revised, which requires all prefectures and local governments to set up suicide countermeasure plans to support people with health problems. Local governments provide counseling, hospice, and medical care for terminal patients. Effect. Euthanasia is physician-assisted suicide, one of the ways to commit suicide. In a society where suicide is legal and common idea, many more people will kill themselves. The process is as follows. 1. Suicide will be regarded as one of the ways to end their lives. 2. Some people will try to end their lives by euthanasia. 3. Accepting euthanasia means allowing people to commit suicide based on choice and autonomy. Dr. Pereira of Ottawa Hospital writes that appropriateness of suicide prevention programs may be questioned, because people wanting to commit suicide should, on the basis of autonomy and choice, have the same rights as those who are requesting euthanasia, unquote. Requesting euthanasia equals to requesting suicide officially. It is actually happening. 8. In the Netherlands, according to the study done by Dutch professor Dr. Theobor, a former member of Dutch Euthanasia Review Committee, the suicide rate rose by 38% between 2007 and 2015. B. In the United States, suicide rate increased much more in states that euthanasia is legal compared to the rest of the states, according to Professor Albert Jones and Peyton, director of the Bioethics Center. People wanting to commit suicide will have the same rights as those requesting euthanasia. Importance. Suicide shouldn't be encouraged in any form. The government's duty is to make a society where life is respected and no one commits suicide. It is wrong to euthanize people for weak reasons. This plan is completely against this idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. We will now have a 1-minute preparation time. Please say your name and start.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Haruka Sawazaki, and I'd like to ask you some questions. First, about your GA1, you said elderly might be victims, but you mean the problem that elderly might choose euthanasia in easy reasons, right?
Yes.
Like they might choose euthanasia for just tired of living or like loneliness, and you think it's a problem?
Yes, because basically it's wrong to euthanize
Yes.
for
Okay.
that.
So you said like one of the reasons was loneliness or like being like some kind of disease, but is it just one reason, only reason?
People are dying because of only tired.
Only because of tired of living.
Yeah.
So you mean like this DA will occur because we might allow people to die? You think like we will give euthanasia the easy option, right? Like you think euthanasia might become an easy option, so it will occur.
Yes, because the definition of
Yes.
unbearable is not
Okay.
there.
Thank you. So thank you very much. And also about your GA2, you said that suicide will increase. It means you think death is always bad as a government, right? Because government should prevent any kind of death. You think?
Currently, the government is having the
Yes.
suicide prevention.
So why is suicide bad? Yes. You mean like because people might die irrationally, it's bad. Like people might die temporarily. What is the bad point? Did you show?
So suicide is bad because the
Yes.
society is trying to prevent
Yes.
suicide.
Okay.
currently.
Thank you very much. So you think euthanasia is equivalent to suicide? You think so? Euthanasia and suicide is really similar thing. You think?
So if we legalize euthanasia, it means legalizing suicide officially.
Yes.
So
Thank you very much. And you said like in some countries the rate of suicide has increased, but
Yes.
does it include euthanasia?
no, it doesn't. It's only the suicide.
So if we legalize euthanasia, suicide also increases.
Yes.
Did you show any proof that suicide increased because of euthanasia?
In the United States,
Did you show that that's caused from euthanasia? Did you prove that suicide increase was caused from euthanasia
the
legalization?
professor is saying that
Yes.
even compared from other aspects,
Yes, okay.
euthanasia could be the
Thank
only
you. So you
reason.
just have a data. Thank you very much. And so, which means why do you think suicide is really similar to euthanasia? What is it? You think it's exactly the same thing, right?
Question time is ended.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges. I will start my attack speech. My name is Yuka. First, on your 81, they said the pain cannot be cured. However, without euthanasia, patients can be free from unbearable pain. Palliative cure is effective. According to the Dr. Kawashima's report, except very few cases, pain can be controlled. So almost all of pain can be relieved by palliative care. On the other hand, there are very few cases that patients still feel pain after palliative care. Continuous deep sedation can be final option. The sedation makes patients sleep until they die, so patients can't feel any pain. Therefore, patients can be free from pain without euthanasia, and we don't have to shorten patients' lives. So their 81 does not stand. And second, they said that patients will die because of their suffering. However, the idea is completely wrong. Under the current situation, death because of suffering is not allowed, which is the same as not allowing suicide. The reason and the purpose of euthanasia and suicide are the same. Therefore, individual suffering should not be a reason to die, even if it is euthanasia. So, yes. And third, they said the patients, their target is the patients who have unbearable pain and severe pain. However, the unbearable pain is very unclear because it depends on patients' psychological, physical and mental strengths and personality. In addition, doctors also have a different perception of the term of unbearable. Therefore, there is no definite definition for the word of unbearable pain. Introducing euthanasia is high risk, as our DA2 and DA1 shows. So their 81 does not stand. And I will move on your 82. First, they said after the plan, regulation will be made and the patient can be patient's will can be conferred. However, first of all, there is no connection between legalizing euthanasia and passive or sedation, because even if euthanasia is legalized, passive or sedation treatment will be there. In the Netherlands, even now, 10% of patients use sedation. So whether legalizes euthanasia, whether legalize euthanasia or not, there is no impact. So 82 does not stand. And second, they said non-voluntary euthanasia can't confirm patient's will. Yeah, sometimes true, but that's why non-voluntary or sedating are done carefully. The guideline about sedation require that when using sedation is decided, many kinds of medical teams approval and specialist approval or advice. Yes, this guideline requires these things. So it's done carefully. So current system is enough to prevent tragic death. And third, they said now patient's consent is not considered, but it's not true. Because as I said before, this case is not usual. And when patients have a clear conscience, they must express their will and they can decide treatment plan. Sorry, so.
Thank you. We will now have questions from the affirmative defense speaker for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson, and of course, talk speaker. Let me ask some questions. My name is Kazumi. So in your first attack, you wanted to say that palliative care is not to remove the patient's pain, right?
Yes.
So in your evidence, you said that except for a few cases, palliative care can control the patient's pain, right?
So sedation will be the final option.
Okay, so you think that sedation is not to remove the patient's pain. Okay. So you in this attack, you think that all the patients could choose a palliative care, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, in the second attack, you want to say that our idea that patients can die for this unbearable suffering is wrong because this is not allowed in the society, right?
Yeah, same as the suicide.
Okay, thank you. Next, in the third attack, you want to say that because the definition of unbearable is quite ambiguous, so your D1, the euthanasia for easy for death will occur. Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, let me move on to our 82. In your first attack, you want to say that even after the plan, the sedation or other treatment will not change. So the situation will never change. You want to say so?
Yeah, so there is no impact. So Netherlands people are still using.
Okay, thank you. Next, in the second attack, you want to say that even now we have the guidelines, so it is enough to regulate the situation, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So in the last attack, you said that our D to target is quite unusual, so the impact is small, right? Can you say that? Can you tell me your last attack?
Okay. So you said that now patient's consent is not considered, but it's not true. So as I said, this is the not usual case. And in addition, the patient, if the patient have the conscience and they have the clear will, they can express the will, and also they can decide the treatment plan. So
Okay. And something to
your claim does not.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me start my talk speech. My name is Taichi. First about both DA1 and 2. This DA completely depends on the assumption that euthanasia is easy option. However, that's not true. Euthanasia works as a last resort. According to Amendment 100 with the covers group code, out of those who request euthanasia, only 1 in 10 patients indeed die by euthanasia. Any hesitation or doubt is stop the procedure, unquote. So likely euthanasia is quite reversible. Even patient initial request euthanasia through the evaluation process or hesitation, those who are irreversible to die will die. So therefore, both DA1 and 2 is not feasible. Moving on to the DA1. You said at first, because unbearable pain is ambiguous, anyone will be able to die. However, that's not true. In order to legalize receive euthanasia, patients must have medical dimension in the suffering. And the definition, without disease, patient cannot die, and this definition is quite clear. According to Community Mental Health and Welfare Body Organization Code, doctors share the common requirements of mental disorder, which is the same system as other physical disease, unquote. Therefore, as long as patients have disease, they can die. However, without it, they cannot die. So therefore, on this point, the criteria is quite clear. So DA1 is not feasible. Moving on to the scan attack to DA1. You said that the patients will die easily. However, that's not true because your evaluation system quite works well. According to Beamer published group in 2000 thought, the doctors some request the reason why doctor refused the request is that suffering was not unbearable or the request was not well considered. That this two reasons accounts for the 54% of the reason why doctor refused the request. Unquote. Therefore, even if patients try to die easily, reason the evaluation system works well. Therefore, DA1 is not no problem. As third attack to DA1, you said to die elder is kind of bad thing. However, they couldn't clearly explain why it's so bad. Although all the requests are based on their will, we couldn't understand its importance. Moving on to the DA2. You said that euthanasia is equivalent to suicide. However, that's not true. According to suicide prevention law court, in order to make sure that no one are cornered into suicide, we should take measures to the suicide court. So this means the government thinks that suicide is not bad because they are forced to die and against the will. However, as for euthanasia, it is carried out based on their will. Given this, euthanasia suicide is not the same at all. Therefore, the DA2 is not standard. The scan attack to DA2. You said that suicide is quite a bad thing. However, government needed to change the way of thinking. Because of this thinking, many patients are forced to die, forced to live. Therefore, so this is completely against people's will. Therefore, government needed to change their will, even against current policy. Moving on to the third attack to DA2. You said that euthanasia will decrease the suicide. However, it is quite unclear because their evidence they never proved that it caused suicide, and its process is unclear. And also, third attack to DA2. You said that euthanasia will die easily. However, that's not true because before committing suicide, patients consider euthanasia before that. So because thanks to the evaluation system, that they will some of the patients refrain the request. Therefore, DA2 is of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges. I'll start my question time. My name is Rin. So first, you have one attack to our DA1 and 2,
Yes.
and 3 attacks to our DA1,
Okay.
and 3 or 4 attacks to our DA2.
So 4 attack to DA2.
Okay. So first, you said there is condition like doctor will check the pulses of euthanasia. So our DA1 and DA2 won't occur.
So because also the patients themselves state such a euthanasia because patients have a 1 week recover. Also, patient considers euthanasia.
Okay. So but term unbearable suffering or incurable is subjective thing, right?
Subject. So as we said in the other attack to DA1, without medical dimension, without having disease.
Do you have data that this is your DA1's first attack, right?
Okay,
so
yes.
Patients who have diseases will die. You said so.
You said so.
Can choose euthanasia, right?
Yeah, or yes.
So do you have data that they have, if they don't have diseases, they can't euthanize?
Yeah, as we said in the second attack to DA1, the evaluation system worked well. So the doctor
is it
repeated
written that only patients who have diseases, if patient doesn't have diseases, they can't euthanize?
Okay, even if these things happen in the Netherlands, in Japan, we are going to legalize euthanasia, in which patients will be able to die with medical dimension, right? The HEnDA definition.
Okay, thank you. So, also, you said on the first attack to our DA1, you said elderly can't die.
So you said that the fact that patients, elderly people will easily die is quite a bad thing. However, they couldn't clear.
So on the DA2, you said why suicide is so you said suicide is not it done without will, right?
So suicide is committed against their will, cornered into suicide. However, euthanasia is voluntarily requested. On this point, these things are quite different, and the government just wants to respect patients' will.
Okay, thank you.
Question time is ended. We will now have a 2-minute preparation time.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Let me start my defense speech. My name is Kazumi. So in the first attack, they said that except for some cases, palliative care is not to remove the patient's pain. However, please check, they admit the exception. This exception is have a severe pain and unbearable pain, as the first speaker said. So what I want to say is these patients. And moreover, their attack is based on the assumption that all the patients can choose the palliative care. But it's not true. Even if the demand for palliative care is high, according to Sakini's paper 2015 quote, only 8% of the patients were in the palliative care hospital because of lack of workers and facility. And more importantly, in the general hospital, most of the patients die without taking any palliative care, even if they want to, unquote. Thus, palliative care cannot be the solution for the patient's pain. Next, in the second attack, they said that in this attack, they also said the sedation is enough to remove patient pain. However, patients are suffering from unbearable pain for many years. Under such a situation, sedation cannot be the fundamental solution for patient pain because it is too late. According to Kyoto University in 1996, quote, sedation is usually conducted on a few days before the patient's natural death, unquote. Under such a situation, often patients have already lost their consciousness. Moreover, it cannot shorten the time they will suffer. So sedation is not the solution. Next, in the third attack, they said that the idea that death is not allowed in the society, so we can never justify these cases. However, actually, that way of thinking told to the patient under the status quo. Since the majority of the society think that human life should not be ended for any reason, many patients are forced to live against the unbearable pain for a long time, despite the fact that they no longer want to live. We must change this way of thinking and give them the right to release from pain. Next, in the third attack, they said that since the definition of unbearable is ambiguous, or their DH2 are more likely to occur. However, their attack is based on the assumption that the expanding use business will occur universally. But actually, thanks to the evaluation process, as repeatedly requires one with interval and second opinion, we can complete this careful determination. According to Oxford University, quote, through the evaluation system, 10% of those who were initial requests were actually euthanized, and most of them withdrew their initial request, unquote. Like this, euthanasia will be conducted on very carefully as a last resort, only for the patient who meet or AE1. Thus, the attack is not true. Next, in the then we move to 82. In the first attack, they said that the situation will not change after the plan. However, that's not true. After the plan, the demand for sedation will decrease. Actually, according to the university course, involuntary termination of life has decreased to be heard after euthanasia law came into force, unquote. Thus, making the law have strong power to regulate involuntary termination of life. The same thing can be said in the third attack. This has the euthanasia law has strong power to enforce them. And next, they said that in the second attack, they said the guidelines not to patient pain. However, according to Agatagaoka, Japanese quote, guidelines is just a consensus among the professionals, so it's making the law is quite important because it has the binding power. So
thank you. We will now hear the negative defense speech for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson and judges. I will start my defense speech. My name is Rim. So first on our DA1, on our DA1 and DA2's attack, they said without condition, euthanasia is not done, and so that patients or elderly people won't die easily. However, on HEnDA's definition, people who have unbearable and incurable suffering will be euthanized. It isn't written that people who have diseases can euthanize. It isn't written it. And we are saying that condition is vague. It is almost impossible to judge if someone said they are suffering unbearably or suffering incurably, because pain or those suffering is subjective thing, and they admitted this point. And since unbearable suffering can't be defined, doctor will judge their individual view and understand variously. So that law is loosened and elderly people is dying with more easily reasoned in Netherlands. According to SS Professor Margaret Somerville, point out the following cases. 1, just tired of life, and 2, just to avoid going into nursing home. Also in Netherlands, according to the Royal Dutch Medical Association, there is debate that 70 years old people without physical or mental illness can euthanize. However, society should never allow these people to die because these elderly people can live longer or government can support those people. Euthanasia will make this easy thing, and society will admit elderly people to die as a wrong thing that we are saying so. And also on the forced attack, they said elderly can die if they want to, but if euthanasia was admitted, some elderly who said loneliness or unbearable suffering can die. However, we should never allow loneliness for reasons, because for loneliness or those suffering, government should support, and not to make it unbearable is important. So their point doesn't stand. And also on our DA2, and they said suicide is forced and against their will. However, they didn't have the evidence when we asked them. And people who commit suicide chose by themselves, and they will choose. So because of their individual condition, and it's your choice, and it is the same as euthanasia. So our DA2 shall be occur. And we have evidence that they said government should make suicide admit, but we should never make those society, because if they please think about the people who gonna euthanize, who gonna make do suicide in front of you, we would make every effort to stop them to commit suicide, and this is the properly thing that we should make the society. And they also they didn't deny the point that euthanasia make raise of the suicide. So we should so accepting euthanasia means that accepting suicide, so that suicide rate increased in the Netherlands or US. So we should never make admit this. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have a 2-minute preparation time.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Haruka Sawataki, and I'd like to summarize this round. First, let me point out the biggest misunderstanding of the negative. The negative said life is always important, and like in any form, life has the highest value. And also, they say any kind of death is a bad thing. However, yes, we understand that this kind of suicide is bad because these are caused by temporary urge, or they are forced suicide. However, we want to say that suicide and euthanasia is completely different, because euthanasia is caused by a really hard discussion. Only the patients who talk to his doctor well, and the people who have decided to suicide and really consciously they have an understanding can be can be euthanized. So we think it's completely different thing, and it's kind of limited case suicide. Euthanasia should also be admitted in these cases. Moreover, they said their DA could be all caused because euthanasia spread all over Japan, and they said their DA because euthanasia becomes an easy option. However, we the government are not trying to make euthanasia an easy option. We are not trying to let all the people die. We just want to give euthanasia as a last resort to the people who can never relieve their pain, which means only the patients who have no other solution can be euthanized. So we think their assumption of DA is all wrong. So first, I'd like to talk about 82 and DA1 probability, which means whether the government can regulate euthanasia system or not. This is euthanasia will spread. However, we have proved that we have given the last option, so their DA1 will not occur. Moreover, all the pain, all the reasons for patients die, they need a medical dimension. It's clearly written on the HEnDA definition. So all the patients have to have some kind of medical diseases. So we do not think that that kind of objective judge for these points. So their DA1 will never happen. Moreover, rather by making a law, the government making law has a strong impact to regulate euthanasia, as we have explained in our 81, which means if they have the effect that our regulation have almost no effect. However, in fact, in Holland, many kinds of involuntary treatment have decreased. So we can see that the government making a law has a really strong impact to decrease this kind of involuntary. And we believe the own kind of medical treatment should be based on the patient's own will. It's a really important thing. Next, about 81 and DA2's value, which means euthanasia to remove pain can be justified or not. In the DA2s, they say euthanasia or dying is always bad. However, we have proved that euthanasia and suicide is completely a different fact. Moreover, they could never prove that why by legalizing euthanasia, suicide also increased. They just gave us some data, but no reason, no link, and it's also not written in the evidence. So we cannot understand the logic. Moreover, we think that by euthanasia, patients will be able to consider their will with doctors. They have more evaluation. In fact, doctors have discussed with patients well, and doctors have already refused many of cases if those the desire to death was unnecessary. So we think that euthanasia could more respect patients' will by this legalization. So in our 81, we have proved that so many patients are suffering. So we think this should be solved in this kind of cases because it's their own will to be saved from their severe pain. And they give us a lot of alternatives. However, maybe in their idealistic world, those alternatives can be effective. However, when we look at this reality, they cannot receive this treatment. And in fact, these patients are suffering and they can be released from this pain. That's why in order to save these pains, we think the government should legalize euthanasia as a law to save these patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Judges. I'll start my summary speech. My name is Suzna. I'd like to summarize CCB. First, let me talk about their 82. They say that after the plan, regulation will be made and patients' consent will be considered. However, first of all, there is no connection between legalizing euthanasia and non-voluntary euthanasia, because our tax speaker said whether euthanasia is legalized or not. Sedating and passive euthanasia are able to use even after the plan. In fact, in Netherlands, 10% of patients use it. So regulation will not affect current situation. Also, sedating are done carefully because of many kinds of medical teams are proper and so on in current situation. Therefore, their argument doesn't have impact and completely wrong. Therefore, their ED2 doesn't stand. And second, let me talk about our DE2. On this point, they didn't our DE's point that suicide increased in the Netherlands and the US. Also, we have evidence that increase of the suicide rate can only explain by accepting euthanasia. Even we consider with any aspects, we prove that euthanasia have a high possibility to increase suicide because people will regard euthanasia as same as suicide. Japan should not make such a society where people can die easily. This plan has a risk that deprive a lot of people's lives. Therefore, our DA2 have big impact and still stand. And third, I would like to compare their ED1 and our DA1. I will show because of accepting people who have unbearable suffering that is not definite, elderly people will be able to die easily and society will support it. They said that euthanasia can remove pain. However, the way of thinking that anyone who is suffering from unbearable pain can euthanize is wrong. Current Japanese society, where people's lives are respected and people are trying to go on living, should not be changed by euthanasia. In addition, current medical treatment such as palliative care and sedation can be effective to relieve pain, so euthanasia, which shortens someone's lives, is not necessary. The most important point is that patient's condition, like unbearable suffering, is difficult to judge, and it is possible to euthanize more and more people who desire to die for weak reasons. Please look at our DU1. Our target of DU1 is elderly people. 75% of people who are euthanized were over 60 in Netherlands. Our target of DU1 is these elderly people in Japan. The choice of euthanasia allowed them to die easily because the criteria of euthanasia is unclear and the assessment is always up to doctors. This proves that it is possible to choose euthanasia because of tired of living or loneliness. There is high possibility that Japanese society where people can die easily because of euthanasia. Our argument has big impact to society. Japanese government should support them to live. Japan should not be a society where people can die easily. That is our importance of DAs. Therefore, we oppose this plan. Thank you.
The debate is now over. You all did a great job.
Okay, thank you very much for waiting. Okay, it was a great debate, but I'd like to remind debaters that debating is also part of public speaking. You not only talk your point, but also you need to make yourself heard by the audience, especially the judges. And so please make sure that judges or even other audience, especially in this kind of stage, can understand what you are talking about. And especially when your class happens, attack, defense, and where you're talking about on 81, 82, or DA1, DA2, and the result that clashes. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I'd like to ask the debaters to think about importance more carefully. There's very, very important question whether the euthanasia, active euthanasia, is same as committing suicide or not. And if they are different, then what is the importance of it? I think the idea behind it is that whether you can choose death or not. People have a right to die, or right to die in particular situations, and obviously not in any situations, right? And whether that will happen or not. And at the same time, what if people choose death with wrong information, or people are forced to choose death? There's a term called duty to die. You feel you're obliged to die. How significant impact that would give to society. Both of you talked about the role of the government and importance of these things in society, but I want you to at the same time think about what is the ultimate happiness for each individual, and whether advantage or disadvantage would be closer to that kind of choice, particularly in this kind of patients who are suffering from unbearable pain. Now, we talked about, okay, let's talk about 81. 81 is talking about physical pain. This is a very common argument. There was an exchange about idea about whether the pain can be removed by other means. And usually, end result would be that there may be a few, but some patients who cannot get away from their unbearable physical pain or psychological pain. But next question therefrom we have to talk about is that if there are patients like that, or people like that, how many people will be chosen to be able to choose active euthanasia? Oftentimes, the affirmative try to defend the condition, defend against the disadvantage and said, even if they make a request, only 10% of people's requests will be achieved. You are trying to make this kind of population smaller and smaller. Then the importance will be qualitative significant, because even if it's a small number, that kind of disadvantage is still important because of qualitative significance. I think the affirmative side could develop either for both 81 and 82. So evaluation of the impact may be different according to the judges. We have 5 judges. I cannot say just my personal opinion. There are different interpretations because the debater didn't sufficiently talk about importance on that point. The 82 about the will of the patient. The affirmative said that because of the current, because of not allowing active euthanasia legally, then there are some people who are chosen to exercise kind of passive, involuntary active euthanasia, in case like in the Netherlands or in Japan too, right? So the affirmative is trying to make sure the will of the patient will be respected by doctors, right? And on this point, the important question from the negative was to me, what's the importance of the will to die, will to choose death, that sort of thing. I think qualitatively, affirmative still needed to talk about importance of self-determination, the body autonomy at this stage. There are some other arguments, and I think that patients will not 100% guaranteed at present, that's for sure. Then the end result would be, yes, those will be respected, and how important would that be? The questions still remain, and interpretation, evaluation is different according to the judges for that sake. The year one is talking about elderly people. Important thing, the interesting thing the negative side talked about is that in the conditions, the disease is not a requirement. So there may be some cases that elderly people will have to choose active euthanasia just because they feel lonely, or they are tired of taking care of disease or something like that. This is interesting argument, and okay, but again, I want to see more importance. So I think in a sense that elderly people are forced to have a sentiment that because of I'm becoming a burden for society or the family members, I have a sense of a duty to die, I would say. So instead of talking about societal importance, the government should make people alive. I think I'm not sure whether that kind of importance is relevant to this particular context. But I feel that active euthanasia may push some elderly people to choose, but still, as negative side said, according to the conditions, affirmative side provided and the HEnDA conditions provided, there are screening. So even though elderly people may request, I want to commit suicide, and then how many people will be actually qualified for active euthanasia, right? And you provide a factual example in Netherlands. But yeah, still, okay, there may be certain people, elderly people who have choose to commit suicide by this measure, but then what's the importance of this? It's against society's will, then what's the significance again for the individual? DA2 as well, increase of suicide. Affirmative negative side argue that legalized active euthanasia will make the sentiment of society change. Like, if the self-determination of body autonomy is that important, suicide will become the same thing. Negative side only talk about increase of active euthanasia, but that's why you attack by saying that, well, number of the active euthanasia for the wrong reason will not increase. I don't think that's the point negative side are trying to make. Negative side are trying to make that, well, because of the change to society, sentiment to society, the number of other ordinary suicide would increase. So I thought that attack was partial. But we have to check the evidence because, like Neil said, in the evidence in constructive, there was only correlation. There may be only correlation, but there's no causal link. Causal link was asserted by the affirmative. And because we have a doubt in the evidence, we have to check what the evidence says. In the end, the conclusion seems to be unclear. The evidence said it may happen to some people, it may not happen to others. So we feel that that kind of overclaim of the affirmative negative side. So some of the judges are persuaded by the statement by the negative side to the extent that they provide a certain reasoning without evidence, and the number, not sure this number is caused by this process. Okay, so this was a split decision and 3-2. And so by 3-2 split decision, the team advancing to semi-final is affirmative, Fujishima High School. Congratulations. Thank you, and I'm very happy to give feedback, especially to the negative, and I think you are busy preparing for the semi-final. Congratulations, good luck, thank you.